The importance of getting Brayden Burries for Arizona basketball and what it means for Tommy Lloyd.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats. This show is brought to you by Gametime. Check it out. All right, now, out of all the players in 2025 and 2026, 2027, there is one player that sticks out above the rest for the University of Arizona, and that is Brayden Burries. All right, now, we've talked about Brayden Burries a great deal, but just to rehash, five-star point guard out of California. I think you could make the case that he might be the best guard in the class, and if he's not the best guard, then he is certainly right there. He can do a little bit of everything. You look at him, he's what a one-and-done guard looks like. He's about 6'4", very good feel for the game. Not only does he have a good feel for the game, he's somebody that players like to play with. I think there's been a lot of talk about, what kind or what position is he? He is not a combo guard. He is a pure point guard. He is, like I said, he comes to campus, and I think that he is probably off to the NBA after 1 year. That is how good he is. Arizona desperately wants him, and he is a priority for a number of reasons. First of all, he's a great fit. He's a really good kid. You can watch him being interviewed for 5 seconds. You can see how he how he conducts himself, and it's just easy to see that he is really, really good. And he is a player, too, that Tommy Lloyd has prioritized. And we've talked about it a great deal, that Tommy Lloyd, when it comes to the transfer portal, has been dynamite. He has been an A+. I mean, from Caleb Love to Umar Ballo to Keyshawn Johnson to Pella Larson to Jaden Bradley. I mean, he has been A+. International, not so much. Domestically, kind of a mixed bag. I mean, KJ Lewis, obviously very, very good. Kylan Boswell wasn't good here, but I can't really blame Tommy Lloyd when it comes to recruiting because Kylan Boswell was a very sought-after player. So, there was definitely that. Carter Bryant, obviously a 5-star kid, super good. And I can't really knock, you bring back Caleb Love. That essentially meant that you were going to lose Josan Sanon. So that's a 5-star that left as well. But overall, like I said, not, 3 or 4 years, it hasn't been great. It hasn't been bad, but probably a B- C+. Now, Brayden Burries is the player that he has to get. He's been on him the longest, and he is at a position of need. Now, Jaden Bradley, I expect Jaden Bradley to have a very good junior season, and I think Jaden Bradley probably is going to go on to the NBA, or if he's not off to the NBA, I think he'll be back, but he can do a lot of different stuff. But you got to be able to prioritize. You got to be able to prioritize which players can do which for you, and I think that is something that obviously with Tommy Lloyd, with this group, that is going to be a big part. And I think Burries is really kind of the epitome of that. We talked about how long Tommy Lloyd had prioritized Carter Bryant, and Brayden Burries is very much in that same boat. And he comes in here and you immediately have no concerns about the point guard spot. Granted, he's probably going to be a 1-year player. I get that, but he can be incredibly impactful during his 1 year here. And then you go off, you wish him well, and you try to get a Kina Olozi, who we're going to get to in just a second. But I think it also just needs to be shown that Lloyd can kind of get the players that he really prioritizes that he can get. And Burries is that dude. Burries is a player that he has prioritized from day one. And with you look at a possible 25-26 lineup with Brayden Burries, with looking at some of the other ones, you could have a Carter Bryant, you could have a Dame Sarr, you could have a lot of different players, but Burries would be the one that would make all of that work. Plus, he comes from an area in California that you are obviously prioritizing, that you're trying to get. And honestly, you want to keep him away from some of the other places. It doesn't matter that UCLA. It doesn't matter that UCLA with Mick Cronin won't be playing him. You don't want to get players that you don't want players to go there just because it is LA. And honestly, same with USC. You want to be able to get somebody at LA that you prioritize. You want to be able to get. And Lloyd hasn't And I think it would also just kind of, alleviate some fears that, about where exactly the domestic recruiting is, because it, like I said, it's been kind of up and down. It had been great. And at the point guard spot, especially, I mean, Jaden Bradley, I like, but the point guard spot at the U of A under Tommy Lloyd has not been great. I mean, there's really no other way to put it. With Kirk Kriisa was just kind of meh. Kylan Boswell last year was pretty much a disaster. And yeah, I think this year Jaden Bradley is going to buck that trend. I'm excited to see what Jaden Bradley can do. But I think you've also got to look at it and say that there's going to be a little bit of a, you just need to see it. And because again, that is, I think, kind of the last thing. Now, when it comes to the international recruiting, it's, it hadn't been great. I mean, there's no reason that the domestic recruiting under Lloyd shouldn't be good. Again, you've got a competitive, you're competitive with what you can do. You're competitive in that that you can bring in, players, and the NIL is decent. It's not great, but it is good enough. It's not like it's football where you really got to kind of move around the edges, move around the corners to try to be able to find some different avenues. At basketball, NIL is more than good enough. So, that shouldn't really be a hindrance, but it will be very important to be able to see what he can do. I'm excited. I think that Arizona leads for him, but it's going to be a tough one. He's, when you are able to coach him a little bit, it's easier, I think, for a player to kind of see how they fit in. And obviously that has been the case for Tommy Lloyd, and we'll keep you up to date, obviously, on this recruitment. But I do believe that, for Brayden Burries, Arizona's got to get Brayden Burries. If you don't get Brayden Burries, then I think that you start to have some questions about that domestic recruiting, especially with as long as Arizona has been recruiting him, and that you have a spot open. So we will certainly see where that one comes into play. But also, I think the other thing too, with Southern California, that's going to be kind of your recruiting breadbasket. You got Boswell out of there. Granted, Boswell wasn't good. I get it, but he was a 5-star type player. Carter Bryant, kind of the same way. Burries, you want him. I mean, again, when you've got Eric Musselman at SC, he's going to be a little bit of a force. And I think with Muss in there, Arizona's got to be able to kind of continue to step the game up. Mick Cronin, it still baffles me. We're going to talk about that in a second, but there's a lot of reasons why Brayden Burries is the player that Arizona really needs to get. Now, you might want to say, where can I watch Brayden Burries and how can I get a ticket for that? Gametime, my friends. Check it out. Download the Gametime app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Check it out. Here's the great thing about Gametime. When you go on Gametime, it's not just for sporting events. It can be for concerts. It can be for a litany of different things. Gametime has you covered. Download the Gametime app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, concerts, tickets, you name it, Gametime generally has it. Another one of these ones, you will thank me later. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, I wanted to vent here for a second. I have no clue why any recruit would ever want to go play for Mick Cronin. None. With Mick Cronin, two things. He is going to throw you under the bus. He will blame you. He will say that you are not good enough. He will not blame himself. And he will then question your intelligence. He will question why you are on the roster, all kinds of different things. And it's not, we're going to tear you down to build you back up type thing. No, he's just a jerk. He doesn't take blame for anything. And he will throw you under the bus. It baffles me that kids would consider playing for him just with his, the way he treats people, the way he acts. And when things hit the fan, he's generally nowhere to be found. He generally then goes and hides. I have never understood why anybody would want to play for Mick Cronin. It makes no sense to me whatsoever, especially too, doesn't really run a fun style of play, and he is a jerk in the process. But be that as it may. It's also, I still think it's important, though, with Arizona moving on, I still think it's important, though, to be able to keep kids away from UCLA, keep kids away from USC, and that is something that I think that Arizona has to be able to do. And if Arizona can do that, they will obviously be in pretty good shape. But that California region, that's obviously where Arizona is looking to make its hay. The other one, too, that I think you want to look at, and I don't have nearly the hope that I did a couple of weeks ago is Tunde Yesufu. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. I believe Tunde is probably going to go to the highest bidder. And that is not the, again, that's just kind of is what it is. I do believe he will go to the highest bidder. Family is obviously in Africa. And again, I have no problem with kids going to the highest bidder. If they go somewhere and they're like, well, I just, they had a better deal for my family as far as jobs, et cetera, then okay, I get it. Like I said, I got no problem with it. But I think that you do need to keep in mind, though, that that obviously is something that, that is something that, as an Arizona fan, I wouldn't expect Arizona to get Tunde, although they're going to keep recruiting him. But Brayden Burries, like I said, from an impact, from a statistical perspective, from just an importance, it's Brayden Burries. Then you've obviously got Koa Pete as well. Arizona's been recruiting Koa Pete for a long time. Koa Pete's been here a number of times. With Koa Pete, he knows exactly what the coaching staff, what the coaching staff is all about. I think they knew that this is going to be a player that's going to probably garner a sizable NIL, and I think they are prepared for that as well. But those are the names. Again, Xavion Staten. I love Xavion Staten, but like I said, I think that Arizona could get him. But also, if he wants to play immediately and be a starter at Arizona, I don't know that that's going to happen with Mount Crevis and with Tobe Awaka on the roster. He might have to wait a year and still get some minutes. So again, like I said, everything just kind of points back to Brayden Burries, and it would be exciting. It's going to be exciting to see what Arizona can do with a real point guard under Tommy Lloyd, because again, Kirk Kriisa, Kylan Boswell, not really those guys in my opinion. They're okay, but I don't think that anybody was ever worried about a team with Kirk Kriisa on it. I think you're going to see that at Kentucky as well, that just not that good, not a good, was supposed to be a shooter, not really a shooter, pretty good ball handler or a pretty good passer, defensively not very good. And Kylan Boswell obviously was, his mind was elsewhere. Now, what would it mean if Arizona gets Brayden Burries? We're going to talk about that next. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. Now, if Arizona were to get Brayden Burries, I think it would alleviate pretty much all concerns when it comes to domestic recruiting, because it would show now that Arizona under Tommy Lloyd was able to get the players that he prioritized and big time players. Again, Burries is a top 15 player in the country. Burries can go pretty much anywhere. Actually, he can go anywhere, and he's going to be in the NBA in a year or two. It's a lot like the Carter Bryant situation, but this is also at a position of great need because you haven't had good point guard play. You get him. I think it solves the point guard play. And then I think you can start looking ahead a little bit to Akinna Alozie. Akinna Alozie, kid out of, obviously prep school in Phoenix. Brayden Burries is a one and done. I think you would love for Alozie to be that player that comes in and is that next guy. And if that is the case, then Arizona, I think, is in really, really good shape. But again, can't put the cart before the horse. Brayden Burries has to be that dude. If you get Brayden Burries, then I think Arizona is in very, very good shape. But if you don't get Brayden Burries, I think there starts to be some real questions. And again, I don't want to, panic, because the transfer portal, I think, is more important than domestic recruiting at this point. But you're still Arizona. You still want to be able to get the players that you prioritize. And let's be honest, you should be able to get the players that you prioritize. Maybe not all of them, but you should be able to get a big percentage of them because you are the University of Arizona, and it is a product that would be it's a lot of fun to play in. And honestly, from a point guard perspective, you get to play for a coach that is going to let you play your game. That is the other thing. Tommy Lloyd is going to give you a lot of free reign. He's going to let you get up and down the court. He's going to let you express yourself with the basketball. He's going to let you get threes. He's going to let you do it. So I think this year with Jaden Bradley, it's going to be a lot of fun. And then I think Brayden Burries could be really that top shelf level talent that shows players that, if you come to the University of Arizona, this is what you can do. And then I think at that point, it just becomes pretty easy to recruit. It's kind of like that Lute Olson effect, where you got to see what Damon Stoudemire can do. Then all of a sudden, Mike Bibby wants to do it. Then Jason, obviously Jason Terry was here before then. Then Jason Gardner, even though Shakur sucked, you still get the point. So Burries are bust, in my opinion, in this class. You got to be able to get him, and then everything looks pretty good. All right, now, next show, we're going to talk some Arizona basketball. Obviously, some Arizona football. We'll talk about a little bit recruiting as well. But as always, have a great rest of your day. And you have been listening to Locked On Wildcats. Thanks for making this your first listen of the day.